Today's video is going to be all about the most frequently asked questions that I receive from you guys about eyeshadow and blush placement. We talk about makeup products a lot on my channel, but we don't talk as much about technique or tools, and I wanted to compile some of the most frequently asked questions that I get in comments and DMs, and really get into the nitty-gritty of how I think about eyeshadow and blush placement. If you're new here, then hi, my name is Bekah. I hope you'll find this helpful and subscribe and stick around. My eye shape is very finicky. I speak a lot about hooded eye makeup, about monolid makeup, about epicanthal fold makeup. That's what I have. But my eye shape and my eyelids honestly change so much. I say they're like my mood ring. Depends how much sleep I get, how healthy I am, if I'm working out, if my skin is irritated, if I have allergies. That's all normal stuff. And so I want to give you tips and tools and techniques that I use to adjust my makeup depending on what I'm going for, what mood I'm in, and just how to adjust techniques for your eye shape specifically. A lot of these are tools and techniques that I didn't have when I was younger. Growing up Korean American, I just didn't see people who looked like me on red carpets. And obviously beauty and mainstream media are in a really different place now. But I wish I had had these techniques as a younger person, because I think so many makeup tutorials are aspirational and they really cater to this one standardized universal eye shape where you have a huge visible mobile lid and then a crease that's really visible, and you have a very uplifted open eye, and not everyone has that. In fact, most people don't have that. So these are just realistic ways to do makeup that I find useful for me. I'm gonna be doing a few different looks, like one on each eye with powder and then cream eyeshadow. I'm also gonna talk about blush placement. As someone with a wider face, you know, I think blush placement can really change a look. There's no right or wrong way to do any of this. This is just how I like to do things depending on the look that I'm going for. So let's start with eyes. I'm gonna start with powder eyeshadow. I already have my eyes primed with the Urban Decay primer potion, just blinked on that. This is such an old school favorite, and I will say it's one I return to. Primer is really key, especially for hooded eyes, or if you have a monolid, just to prevent any smearing, or if you have oily eyelids. So I've already applied that, and I've also already powdered my eyelids. I like to do this with a loose powder. This is my Fit Glow Beauty powder, and I take a little velour puff, and I will press the powder onto my eyelids just to create as smooth a canvas as possible. It's totally normal, obviously, to have eyelid fine lines and wrinkles and puffiness and all of that. This is just going to help the eyeshadow adhere to your eye better. I'm gonna create a different look on each eye. I'm going for one that's more eye-opening, and then I'm gonna do one that's more of a smoky wing. I feel like these are two common eyeshadow looks. They're questions I get often. So I'm gonna start with my Makeup by Mario Neutrals palette. I know I've been talking about this a ton. It just has all of the shades that I need to create a complete eye look. I will be throwing in some shimmers here and there, but I feel like these are really reliable. They're easy to use. They're not too pigmented, but they also blend out like a dream. The tools portion of this video is sponsored by Rephr, which is super exciting because you guys know I use Rephr brushes in almost every makeup look I create. So this is a really exciting partnership. It's one that feels super organic. Actually, if you go to the brush guides I did a couple of years ago, there are tons of Rephr brushes mentioned in that. So this is almost like an update to my brush guide. And if you're not familiar with them, they are a tools and skincare company, but they're primarily known for their brushes, which are handmade in Japan by master artisans. You guys know I love my Japanese makeup brushes. And the thing that's interesting and kind of unique about Rephr is that they offer them at an affordable price point, even though these are really luxurious brushes, in exchange for community feedback. So they're often running these kind of community promos where you can purchase the brushes at a discount in exchange for your review, and they actually do implement their community reviews. They've created tons of new different brush shapes implementing those reviews. There are so many in their collection. I'm gonna highlight some of my favorites and why I like them. Now, you can adjust this based on your skin tone. I'm gonna be talking about my skin tone, but really I'm gonna be talking about the depth of the pigments that we're using. So I'm going to go into this mid-tone matte shade. Compared to my skin tone, it's not very much deeper. I'm not looking for a lot of depth here because what I'm doing is I'm going to be like contouring my eye shape. This is brush number 27. It's a fluffy tapered brush. It's used for blending. So I'll dip my brush in. And I like this because I'm going to touch it to my eye where I want the deepest pigment, and then I'll work in windshield wiper motions. A lot of people will call this method defining your crease, but if you don't have a crease, if you have a monolid or an epicanthal fold, the way I think of it is actually finding your orbital bone, which is the bone around your eye shape. You're gonna feel where that ends around your eye socket, and that's where you're going to kind of press the brush in and blend out. This just creates some definition, some eye shape. I often call it contouring the eye. In terms of blend, I generally use the brush to tell me where the eyeshadow should stop. So it usually aligns with the tail of my eyebrow, you see right there, and that's where I keep blending. So I'm gonna line the tip of the brush with the orbital bone, and then I'm sweeping in windshield wiper motions. Now, if you have hooded eyes, you're going to switch to a smaller tapered brush. This is the brush number 14. I love this because it has enough stiffness to hold its shape, but it also has fluffiness that's going to help with blending. And you want a slim brush like this because it's going to fit in the hooded part of your eye, and it's also going to blend above the hood. So let me switch to a slightly darker pigment. I'm going one shade below the one that I showed you. And you're going to do the same thing, but in a more detailed way using a smaller brush. And honestly, if you have smaller eyes, smaller eye brushes help. It seems obvious, but I feel like a lot of brushes on the market are really huge and aren't good for doing detail work. So you can see my eye fold is here when I open my eye. I'm actually gonna go above the eye fold. I'm gonna place the product there, and then I'm gonna blend out. And what that does is it makes that shadow visible. It makes that definition and that contour, that sculpting of your eye more visible when you're looking at someone straight on. This is why you wanna not place your eyeshadow when your eye is closed. You wanna place your eyeshadow when you're looking straight on into a mirror, because that is how you'll see where you need that definition above the fold. And this is not something you can naturally tell when your eye is closed. You don't want to apply your eyeshadow when your eye is closed because it just looks random the way that I've placed the eyeshadow, I'm aware. But when you look at your eye straight on, that's where you see the movement, the dimension, and the natural way that your eye already opens so that you can amplify your features that you already have rather than kind of follow this template. And then I'm gonna go back into that first shade and just soften this blend with that smaller brush. And I'm starting to keep the blend a little bit more focused on where I initially put that deeper color. So it's light here and it fades into deeper. A few things to note here, negative space is also very important. You'll notice I haven't put any eyeshadow on my mobile lid, and I also haven't put any eyeshadow right here. That is really critical to an eye-opening eyeshadow look because when you close this off, you get a smokier look. It can make the eyes look a little bit smaller because you're closing off that area with dark shadow. So if you're going for this bright, open look, you want to keep this space clear and you want to keep this patch clear as well. If you do want to build a bit more drama, I'm going to go back into that lighter mid-tone shade that I used, and I'm going to trace my lower lash line, and I'm not even adding a lot of color. I'm keeping it focused on the outer corner of the lash line. I'm not connecting it all the way up to the top. I'm keeping this space blank. And I'm letting the natural shape of the brush do the blending work. Because this is already a slim brush, like just look how slim the top of that brush is. I'm able to get close to the lash line and still get this beautiful, fluffy, detailed blend. I do want a bit of shimmer to open up the eye, so I'm going into the Tom Ford Hazy Sensuality palette. This is the Baked Gelée formula, which I love. You could do this with any shimmer shadow. I'm going to be using Rephr 02, which is an amazing brush for packing on pigment and building dense color. So you can see that the bristles aren't very long, but they're rounded, and they are packed pretty tight. They don't have a ton of movement, and because of that, I'm able to pick up, let's do this shimmer shadow. I'm able to pick up the shimmer shadow. I can really work it onto the brush like this. The shape almost mimics the tip of your finger, and I'm just going to tap and pack on that pigment. And you're gonna pack this all over your mobile lid and even slightly above to meet this deeper color here. And because this is a brighter shade, I am actually going to take it to fill in that little gap that I left blank here, and that's actually gonna open up the eye space even more. So that's really it. With this kind of eye look, I would probably just add mascara. I may not even go for eyeliner just to create that wide open look. Actually, let me do that real quick. This is my Clio tubing mascara. I'm just adding a light coat of it. So here's the side with no eye makeup. Here's the side with a very natural but eye-opening eyeshadow look, just using these three brushes, the 27, the 14, and the 02. Now I'm gonna move on to the smoky wing side. I'm going to use the brush number 15. It's actually quite similar to 27 in terms of width, but the 27 has longer bristles and the 15, the bristles are a little bit shorter. I'm actually going to go into that same shade, and actually a lot of my eye looks start this way because I'm contouring and sculpting my particular eye shape. It's just a good base for me to kind of start building an eye look. It's really not about the amount of color I'm putting down, it's about the shape that I'm creating following my orbital bone. And actually with this look, I think I am gonna go for a lighter brow bone, so I'm going to go into a mix of this white and pinky beige and start there, just lightly highlighting the brow bone and blending that in with this medium mid-tone shade. Time to get smoky. I'm gonna go into some of these deeper browns using a pencil brush. This is the number 3 brush. I love it because it's very dense and it's tapered at the end and it's good for packing on pigment. The denser the brush, the more color payoff you're going to get. So I'm going to go into this smoky brown. Now with a hooded eye or smaller eye shape or an epicanthal fold or a monolid, basically I'm going to line up the pencil brush with the end of my brow, and I'm just going to stamp on that color. I'm drawing a line. And basically using the pencil brush on its end allows me to get a pretty straight line. And I'm going to connect it to the outside corner of my eye. And now you can refine the shape of this by adding more deep pigment along the lash line and outer corner. And you want to do this with your eye open, looking straight ahead into the mirror. So I have a mirror right under the camera. I'm looking straight ahead and I'm drawing a line across. And rather than lining my entire lash line, I'm just connecting it almost to right above my pupil. I'm adding pigment only to there because if I go all the way in, it's gonna close off the eye. It doesn't have to be precise at all. This is more just like sketching out the shape. And this is why I like doing a smoky liner. You don't need precision at all. It's much more forgiving. And again, just keep your eye open, keep relaxed, and you're gonna blend over the fold of your eye if you have hooded eyes. Now I'm gonna move on to one of my favorite teeny tiny brushes. This is the brush number 29. It's a straight edge brush. It's very slim, it's very small, and it's great for stamping and deepening color along your lash line, especially if you have small eyes. So I'm gonna go back into this dark brown shade, and I'm literally going to stamp along my lash line and build depth and pigmentation. And I'm going to deepen the shape that I've already sketched out with that pencil brush. Again, I'm not bringing that depth past my pupil. So at this point, you're gonna notice, especially if you have a hooded eye, that there's this kind of triangular gap right here. There's the eyeliner, but then there's a patch right here. And that's because when I open my eye, that's where my fold is. And that's okay, you can leave that there. Just add depth around that area. It definitely helps to tap and sort of wiggle too if you wanna use the straight edge of that brush. If you want just a dramatic powder liner, you could totally leave this here, or you could go into another small brush. This is the brush number 13. It's another small tapered blending brush. It's a little bit smaller and stiffer than the number 14, which has longer bristles. Let me compare these for you here. That's 14 that we already used. This is 13. If you want to smoke it out, I'm gonna go into a mid-tone brown like this one. I'm not even really adding a lot of product. I'm just blending in small circles using the tip of the bristles, dragging that pigment across the lid. Personally, I'm not blending out this sharp edge because that's where you get that nice crisp wing, but I'm blending out where the pigment meets the rest of my eyelid in sort of this diagonal shape like this. For me, this is one of the easiest ways to do a smoky liner. I feel like We all want a really crisp winged liner, and sometimes that's doable with a liquid, but I feel like this is a way of channeling the kind of drama of a winged liner while still allowing it to be forgiving. And if you have fine lines, if you have little folds in your eye, which who doesn't really, this tends to be a little bit more forgiving while still giving you that drama. Now this look builds gradation from top to bottom, right? Light to deep. This look is building gradation from light to deep sideways rather than top to bottom. So the inner corner of my eye is going to be open, whereas the outer corner of my eye is where you're going to have the most depth and smokiness and pigmentation. As you're blending, you can actually feel your orbital bone, kind of like we did on that side. You don't want to bring the depth past the orbital bone. You want to keep it really focused on the outer corner under your orbital bone. You get that really beautiful blend, that diffused smoky gradation that's happening from light to deep. Then with that same tapered brush, nothing else on it, I'm actually just going to do the same thing. I'm smoking the outer corner of my lower lash line lightly, keeping more of the product on the outer corner rather than the inner corner, because for me, I want to open up my eyes this way. And then I'm going to take that small 29 brush again on the deeper brown. I'm going to lightly stamp it along my lower lash line. And you can see how it's so soft. It's good for sensitive eyes, and it allows you to keep really, really focused application. Just teeny tiny little stamps along the lower lash line, again stopping at my pupil. And then this is not necessary, but if you wanted to add more depth, you could go over it with a liquid eyeliner. This is the Surratt one. And basically you've already mapped out where your liquid liner is going to go. So maybe if you want more depth or opacity, you can trace this with a different eyeliner, liquid or pencil. Again, keeping your eye open and blending, looking straight into the mirror over the folded area of your hooded lid. And you can take a brush like this, a shader brush, this is the 28, back into a shimmer shade. This is the Tom Ford Hazy Sensuality Quad. And if you do want to add a little bit of shimmer, because we're going from light to deep this way, I actually like to add a pop of something in the inner corner just to add that extra bit of brightness to contrast with the smokiness. I think that is a nice way to play up the blend on this eye. Let me add some mascara here. And because this is smokier, I'll go on the lower lash line as well. So two really different eye looks. You've got a really open, kind of eye-opening, rounder eye shape look versus a smoky wing. It's a little bit more sultry, it's dramatic. This side will close off your eye a little bit more, but in exchange, you get that winged out shape. Whereas this side, it's actually about creating verticality and openness between the lid and the brow. So here are the two different powder eyeshadow looks. Okay, I was gonna move on to cream eyeshadow application, but I think while we have these two different eye looks, I'm gonna show you how I would apply blush differently for each look. On this side, I'm gonna show you how to make the cheeks look fuller and more youthful, which I think goes along with that eye-opening blush. And then on this side, we're gonna go for a much more sculpted blush look. I'm using the Bare Minerals bronzer on this side in the shade Kiss of Pink. This is a slightly shimmery pinky blush, and it's a really beautiful blendable formula. And then I'm gonna go in with the Rephr Brush 05. So this is a nice brush because it actually hugs the natural shape of your cheek. It's going to bring out the roundness of your cheek towards the front of the cheek, like the apple of the cheek. So I'm gonna dip the brush in, got product here, and then I'm just gonna hug the natural curve of my cheek, the natural apple of my cheek, and blend out. And this brush is super soft. Honestly, all of the work of blending is done for you. See how easy that was? But you can of course build up pigment, you can blend it out. When I go for a full sort of cheek look, that youthful look, I actually blend it up to my under eye, and I find, not all the way, like not full pigment under the eye, but when I blend it like this and sort of wiggle the brush back and forth, it gives you that really beautiful sun-kissed sort of look. I also find that bringing the blush up higher prevents the blush from dragging your face down while still giving you that full cheek look. I used to really hate doing this blush look. I always liked a more sculpted blush look, but lately, and maybe it's because I'm in my 30s, I'm enjoying bringing out the fullness of my cheeks. I think it's because I always had a really round face. And so if you are conscious about that and you want to create a more sculpted look, I'm gonna show you how. So this is the Gucci blush in the shade Rosy Beige. You can see it has a mauve-y, slightly cool toned undertone, and that's gonna go well with a kind of contoured sculpted blush look. And for this, I'm gonna go into the brush number 5. Brush number 5 is angled, it's tapered, and it's skinnier. So you can see it's cut at an angle here. So I'm dipping into my brush, tapping off the excess, and then I'm gonna angle my brush from the top of my ear across my cheekbone like this. And you're gonna use the actual tapered nature of the brush to create a really focused blush look across the top of your cheekbone. You're even gonna blend it up into your temples and into your hairline. I get so many questions about blush placement. I feel like where you place it and how you place it really changes how a face can look. With this look, you don't want to go on the apple of your cheek. You want to avoid that and lift everything up. Isn't it so wild how blush placement can really change the look of a face? This side is very happy, youthful, fun, vibrant, open. This side is drama, she's sculpted, she's ready to go to the club. This side brings out the fullness of the cheek, whereas this side brings out the sculpted nature of the cheek. I'm ready to finish off with cream and liquid eyeshadows, so I'm gonna start with the About Face eye paint in the shade Capulets, which is a really good sort of eye sculpting shade, and I'm using the brush number 32. This one's really interesting. It's slightly larger, but it's cut at an angle. It has a bit of give to it, and it's going to allow me to blend out a large area, a large surface area on my mobile lid while doing blending work. This one also works well for blending out under eye concealer if you want to keep product really focused in the inner corner. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to apply it and just do a couple of dots. Again, where I added the most pigment when I was doing that very first eye look. And then taking the 32 brush on an angle, I'm gonna use it to just blend that product out, and you can see what a beautiful, easy blend that is. It really takes no work at all. Because the brush is cut at an angle, it almost does that work of gradation for me. And then I'm going into a Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize. I've really been liking the shade Oyster Pearl. It has this slightly cool toned sheen with a taupey base. I'm gonna take that same eye brush directly into the product and pick up a little bit. A shade like this is also nice because there's a slight contrast between the silvery sheen and the taupey base. So it looks really dimensional and catches light differently depending on the angle. That's really it. I just kind of use whatever's left on the brush to refine the blend, to blend things out, but I'm not afraid to bring the shimmer above my fold or my crease because I already have that Capulets shade down. It's just giving me even more dimension and movement across the eye. This is an easy one and done on its own. This is an easy one and done on its own. Together, they're even better. For something a little bit more fun, I'm going into the Half Magic Beauty Chrome Addiction in the shade Sky Juice. It's one of my favorites. Don't be scared. I'm gonna use this to create a really blended, diffused eye look, and I'm also going to use the Rephr 21 brush. It's just a flat paddle brush, but it's good for blending liquids and creams. So I'm just gonna take a couple of dots, don't be scared, and I'm going to literally use this brush as a paintbrush to get a really even application across the mobile lid. Now, if you have hooded eyes like me, or if you have a fold, when you open your eye completely, you're going to see that the color is going to transfer above your fold. That's where you blend the shadow up to. Not to the fold, but the space above the fold. Just add product as you need, and I feel like this brush is really great because it's not too big, but the flatness of the brush, this paddle shape, allows you to get a really smooth application across the eyelid. The final shape of this may depend on your eye look. You may want to go for something really dramatic like we did earlier, or you might want to go for an even more diffused blend. You could certainly layer powders on top of this. I like this as is. I wear this kind of eyeshadow look all the time. I feel like it's a really easy way to incorporate color without having to commit to a bunch of different colors. It's still a statement, but it's minimal, playful, and yet understated at the same time. Maybe you want a little pop of shimmer in the inner corner. I'm gonna take the shade Lil Beast. It's a glitter champagne shimmer with the 28 brush, which I used before. It's just that little blender brush. This one works with powders and creams as well. I'm just gonna lightly place a bit of shimmer in the inner corner for something playful. Again, it's very much a choose your own adventure thing. I feel like most people on most days go for a one and done shadow, but actually this is a one and done shadow look too. And if you have the right formula with the right brushes, you can get something that pops, that feels like a statement, that feels playful without a lot of work. That actually took way less work for me than the smoky liner look. So here are the two cream eyeshadow looks. Let me even things out and we'll wrap up the video. I just evened things out. I added some of my tubing mascara and I added a little bit of navy liner. This is the Victoria Beckham Beauty Kajal liner in the shade Navy Noir. I thought it kind of emphasized the blue and gave some depth to the lash line. Sometimes when you do a colorful eyeshadow, you need that depth to come back along the lash line so your eyes still pop. I thought that worked out nicely with the blues, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I thought it was really fun to create. I was even shocked at how different my face could look depending on the placement of eyeshadow and blush and just how makeup can accentuate certain features in a person. Obviously, my face is not perfectly symmetrical, but it's still wild to see the sort of split face comparisons. I really hope you felt encouraged to embrace your natural features as you are and also maybe try something new. And if you try any of these and you like them, let me know. I always love hearing from you guys. So thank you so much for watching. If it was your first time here, I would love for you to subscribe and I will see you in the next one. Bye.